Black is not, it's certainly not the color that I should have worn today, but I haven't done laundry in a while, so that's what I get for not doing laundry. Hi, today I wanted to talk about a little bit more about my depression. Today I wanted to talk a little bit more about my depression and anxiety and how it all started. In a sense, kind of like a hero origin story, and the hero is being me, of course. The first time I kind of felt the heaviness of depression was during a time when I was building a startup back home called Bazinga. It was a co-working space, and I built it with 4 of my friends, 3 of my friends and 1 of my professors. We got to a place where it has been difficult making money and we're losing money on the space. I had a lot of tension with one of my friends, close friends, that kind of broke us apart. It was hard to kind of lead the startup at that point because I didn't feel heard. I decided to leave after I suggested to kind of downsize our space that we're renting and just focus on, drop the co-working space and just focus on that, things that were bringing us money. That includes web development, contracting, and social media management. Yeah, after that decision was vetoed by everybody else. After I suggested that, I didn't get any support from my other teammates, so I decided to leave. I started working with a friend of mine on a startup around music and music recommendations back then. At some point, I rented an apartment in Ramallah and I stayed in it for like 4 months, but I had nothing, no furniture in it besides a futon where I slept on the ground. That's when I felt my depression kind of started. During Bazinga, I would sleep at my at the co-working space every day. I would work all day, and at the end of it, like when it started feeling like a failure, that's when the depression started coming up. And with dismantling of my friendships and my close friends, kind of that support system for some reason just got disappeared, and a lot of it is because of me isolating myself. I remember there was a 3 days period where I stayed in my apartment and I did eat nothing until my friend that I was working with called me out and he ordered me this soup, and I sipped 1 sip and I started crying. So yeah, all of this, losing a relationship, losing like my support system, my friends, and losing the business that I was building, the ambition that I was hoping to achieve with it. And then I decided to move forward with an offer from Google, and I moved to the US and worked at Google for 5 years. That, of course, introduced more loss, more grievance in my life. I lost my connection with my family. I started quickly having a different ideology. My ideology with my family started diverging, and that made it less of a support system and more of a anti-support system. I don't know what to call it. And so that was hard being adjusted to that environment, that new environment, especially moving to the Bay Area with working at Google and having everybody around you feels like they're smarter than you. It feels like they got their shit way better than you. And so I always felt intimidated. I always felt anxious in a work environment. So I was okay at Google. I was productive until I wasn't. And while working at Google, I started building this open source project called Muncher. It was a blogging platform for Arabic audience. I found a developer community and a publisher community, a blogger community, and that kind of brought a lot of joy to me and a lot of kind of that connection that I lost. So I worked on Muncher for a while as like just a side project with these developers until everybody got busy and it became a little bit more apparent that it's me who's going to continue working on this. So at some point I was so excited about working on Muncher that I decided to quit my job at Google and pursue it full time. I don't regret that time at all. I actually really love the time I spent building Muncher and Carbon Tools, which is this rich text editor in the browser that used to be really hard to find any library that supports Arabic. Maybe now it's a little bit easier. There's tons of them. I still consider Carbon Tools one of my favorite projects, and one of the projects that gave me a lot of boost and confidence. So I worked on Muncher for a while, I think around 18 months. It was all fun and games when it came to building things, to being creative, to come up with ideas and actually implement it. That was fun. Until I needed to focus on the business side of it. I needed to figure out if it's going to make money, if it's going to be a business, how to grow it, more of an audience. We didn't have that big of an audience. So things became difficult when I switched to that role, and I found myself failing at it terribly. So I tried to find a co-founder to help me with that. That didn't help very much because we were both at that point depressed and going through a rough time, unable to find that energy, that interest in working on it. I remember at some point I was walking the streets in the Bay Area in Santa Clara and just crying my eyes out, just walking in the streets for hours. And I would remember I would sit on the side of the road, and I would call my ex-partner and talk to her about it. And she suggested maybe it's time to quit working on Muncher, and I think she was right. So I did. I quit working on Muncher. I tried going to therapy for a bit. Didn't find a good therapist. I traveled. I came back. I didn't really feel like I want to work. I didn't feel like I could work on anything. I was low energy. I was depressed until a friend of mine convinced me to put myself on a website called. Once I did that, I got tons of requests for interviews, and that gave me a boost of confidence that still people want me. When I started interviewing, I did really well, and I was surprised. That also gave me another boost of confidence. I got 5 offers in a month. I didn't even take the highest offer. I took an offer that actually provided a place to grow technically and like a lot of technical challenges. That was PlanGrid. I joined PlanGrid and worked for a year until my productivity plummeted. It got to a place where I would sit on my desk, my fingers on my keyboard, and I'm just staring on my code on my monitor, and I cannot process anything. I cannot move my fingers. I cannot think, what is this code? Like, I cannot read it. It got to that point, and I would start crying on my desk. That was the moment I started real therapy. My therapist recommended the psychiatrist. The psychiatrist prescribed meds, and with therapy and meds, things started changing very fast. I started on a med called Zoloft, and it helped me get to a place at work. I'm able to focus, I'm able to do work, and I would come into work and I would have this realization of clarity. I'm like, is this how normal people live? I wrote some stuff describing it. It felt like San Francisco fog, Carl, being compressed into a single drop of crystal clear water. And that drop quenches your thirst for 1,000 years. It felt like I can see for the first time. I can dare to look at things and actually see them. Like I can lift up my head after looking down for years. Like words can't come out with ease like a waterfall. I felt a sense of awe and at the same time of envy, of anger, that I have been living in this dark hole fighting to get out, and that this is how normal people live. That felt wonderful. I don't want to overstate the effectivity of meds. I don't want to praise it too much because, as you'll see as I speak, that praise will go down very quickly. Zoloft worked for a while, except it crashed me. Like, I would give me energy in the morning until 3 p.m. and I would absolutely crash. I couldn't move. I would be on the couch and I'm absolutely not going out, not getting up. My psychiatrist prescribed another meds called Wellbutrin to help with energy. It worked a little bit until it gave me an anxiety attack in the middle of a web developer conference, and that I had to leave the conference and just sit and crumble and just shake. So we stopped Wellbutrin and switched to other meds, I think. Modafinil, Ritalin. Modafinil worked for a little bit until it didn't. Apparently it's a very favorite drug in the Bay Area. They love it. Ritalin kind of worked. It does give me anxiety sometimes, but when I use it on very low dosages, it works well. That's one of the meds that I'm still on. Productivity thrived at work, but that affected my social life that energy being dead after 3 p.m. or later affected my life. I used to have, even when I had troubles at work, I used to have really good social life in San Francisco. We would go out a lot. We would meet up with friends. I would hang out with a friend almost every day. I would go to tons of concerts. But after I started meds, that kind of changed. I would have a lot less energy to go out, a lot less energy to go to concerts. So I hated that idea that in order to fix myself, I have to sacrifice something for something else. I had to sacrifice my social life in order to have work life, which capitalism, yeah. In any case, I went through a divorce. Initially, that was okay. That was more than okay. I felt like a sense of renaissance. I was going all the time. I was meeting with friends. I was organizing social hangouts. I was dating. I traveled to Dubai to go to a friend's wedding by myself, which was big for me. I had the best time until COVID happened. It brought me back to a new low. I would be stuck at home crying every day for hours. It was because of the lockdown. It was also, I think, because of switching meds at the same time. We switched from Zoloft to Vibrad. One of the reasons we switched off Zoloft was that I experienced one of the side effects. One of the main side effects that men experience, 60% of men experience, is sexual dysfunction. I wrote something. My dick stopped working very well. It was hard to get hard to keep it hard, and very, very hard to orgasm. I know this is getting personal, but welcome to the Me Show. Anyways, we stopped Zoloft, switched to Vibrate for a while. It didn't work very well. We switched to lithium. It worked until it didn't. We switched to lamotrigine, which I still am on. Then we added a meds called Frylar, which this is the most recent meds we changed that I did. And so this, in combination with Ritalin and lamotrigine, worked very well so far, at least. Mixed, but still. Before we switched to that last meds, I had around 8 months of really dark time. I was stuck at home. I isolated myself. I wouldn't respond to any of my friends. I wouldn't pick up calls. I would just order food every day. At some point, my apartment was so trashy. The whole floor had empty bags of takeout bags. I couldn't shower most of the time. I couldn't get out of bed a lot of the times. Productivity, of course, was really bad. At some point, I couldn't shower for almost a month. And I know some of you, it's gonna be a little bit judgy about that, but as a viral TikTok says, people get so depressed they kill themselves. Why wouldn't you believe that? They wouldn't shower for a month. Anyway, the folks I was dating broke up with me. I went through a big breakup as well before that, and so there's a lot of loss and failure theme has been in my depression. I talk a lot about all of this because I know there's a lot of us out there that has been either judging themselves or being judged by other people and feeling like they're losers or they're a failure. One of the things that changed my mind on this is listening to people talk about their experience with depression and medication and therapy. And so that's why I talk always about this openly, in hope that you relate to any of these stories. I used to say, oh, this is exactly how I feel, and I'm pretty sure some of you will say that. This is not a unique experience. It's not. A lot of people are going through the same things. Dozens of us, dozens. So yeah, watching other talk about their depression and their experience allowed me to feel validated of my own experience, allowed me to be comfortable with what I'm experiencing right now. And so yes, I want you to know that you're valid, that you're just sick. Brain science, unfortunately, hasn't progressed that much, and we don't know that much about it, about brain diseases and how to treat them. It all feels like a trial and error, and that's all you could do now is to try. And I hope you keep trying with me. I want to leave you with two things. The first one is a call to rise. And as Brain tells Pinky, when Pinky asks him, what are we going to do tonight, Brain? He says, what we do every night, Pinky. We're going to try and take over the world. Or in Arabic, ما نفعله كل ليلة, Pinky. سنحاول السيطرة على العالم. And then I want to leave you with reading a poem that a friend of mine sent that I cried reading it to my sister, and I hope you find comfort in it. It's a poem by Jane Kenyon. Part 1. From the nursery. When I was born, you waited behind a pile of linen in the nursery. And when we were alone, you lay down on top of me, pressing the bile of desolation into every pore. And from that day on, everything under the sun and moon made me sad. Even the yellow wooden beads that slid and spun along a spindle on my crib. You taught me to exist without gratitude. You ruined my manners towards God. We're here simply to wait for death. The pleasures of earth are overrated. I only appear to belong to my mother, to live among blocks and cotton undershirts, with snaps, among red tin lunch boxes and report cards in ugly brown slipcases. I was already yours, the anti-urge, the mutilator of souls. 2. Bottles. Elavil, Lodimol, Doxepin, Norpamin, Prozac, Lithium, Xanax, Wellbutrin, Paranate, Nardil, Zoloft. The coated ones smell sweet or have no smell. The powdery ones smell like the chemistry lab at school that made me hold my breath. 3. Suggestion from a friend. You wouldn't be so depressed if you really believed in God. 4. Often. Often I go to bed as soon after dinner, as seems adult. I mean, I try to wait for dark, in order to push away from the massive pain in sleep's frail wicker coracle. 5. Once there was light. Once, in my early 30s, I saw that I was a speck of light in the great river of light that undulutes through time. I was floating with the whole human family. We were all colors, those who are living now, those who have died, those who are not yet born. For a few moments I floated, completely calm, and I no longer hated having to exist. Like a crow who smells hot blood, you came flying to pull me out of the glowing stream. I'll hold you up. I never let you, my dear ones, drown. After that, I wept for days. 6. In and out. The dog searches until he finds me, upstairs, lies down with a clatter of elbows, puts his head on my foot. Sometimes the sound of his breathing saves my life. In and out, a pause, a long sigh. 7. Pardon. A piece of burned meat wears my clothes, speaks in my voice, dispatches obligations, haltingly or not at all. It is tired of trying to be south-hearted, tired beyond measure. We move on the monomen oxidase inhibitors. Day and night I feel as if I had drunk 6 cups of coffee, but the pain stops abruptly, with the wonder and bitterness of someone pardoned for a crime she did not commit. I come back to marriage and friends, to pink-fringed hollyhocks, come back to my desk, books, and chair. 8. Credo. Pharmaceutical wonders are at work, but I believe only in this moment of well-being. Unholy ghost, you are certain to come again. Course mean you will put your feet on the coffee table, lean back, and turn me into someone who can't take the trouble to speak. Someone who can't sleep or who does nothing but sleep. Can't read or call for an appointment for help. There is nothing I can do against your coming, When I wake, I am still thee. 9. Wood thrush. High on Nardal and June light, I wake at 4, waiting greedily for the first note of the wood thrush. Easeful air presses through the screen with the wild, complex song of the bird, and I am overcome by ordinary contentment. What hurt me so terribly all my life until this moment. How I love the small, swiftly beating heart of the bird, singing in the great maples, its bright, unequivocal eye. Bye.